Good morning, everybody. I want to welcome you to the August 30th, 2022 meeting of the Calvert County Board of Commissioners. This time, I'd like to ask Pastor Weibel if you would give us a blessing this morning. Thank you.
Let us pray. God, you are the creator and author of all things. You are the source of all justice. We're conscious of the gravity of our responsibility as civil servants to promote justice, unity, peace, and the common good. Give us hearts and minds that are open and discerning to the task that we exercise today, and help us to never forget those who go without their voices being heard, those most in need. You who live and reign forever and ever. Amen.
Amen. I want to thank Pastor Weibel for coming and joining us this morning. He comes to us from Jesus, the Divine Word in Huntingtown. Thank you, Pastor. We appreciate it. Commissioner Weems?
Yes.
Nope, you're fine. Next item on the agenda is to approve the agenda. Are there any corrections or additions to the agenda as presented? Hearing none. All those in favor? Up. I need a motion.
If you would like me to make the motion, I'd be happy to make the motion. Motion to approve and adopt the agenda is submitted.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve the agenda as presented. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So I do have a couple of public service announcements today. Just want to pass our condolences along to the Jack Hammett family. Jack passed away yesterday morning. Those of you that didn't know Jack Hammett, he owned a construction business, did a lot of work in Calvert County, was very active in the Lions Club, and so we want to pass along our condolences for their loss. The other thing is school started today. I want everybody to be aware of school buses and the kids running around. It's just been a while since we've dealt with that, and just want to remember to pay attention, especially in the morning and the evenings. And September is Emergency Preparedness Month, so make sure you have a plan in place if there's an emergency that arises. And I believe that's, no, we have Labor Day coming up, and since we'll be off, just want everybody to take time to recognize all the laborers in this country that built it and made it what it is today. So we want to thank all of you, especially those that are going to have to work on Labor Day to provide services and conveniences for us. So that's all I have. The next item on the agenda is the Sheriff's Office swearing-in ceremony. Sheriff?
Thank you, Commissioners. Detail. Set hunt. Forward, march. Kathy Smith, please. Clerk of the court.
Detail, right, face.
Hi there. Hey, I'm going to have you raise your right hand, and you're going to repeat after me. We're going to start with Tyrell. I state your name.
Tyrell Strong Flag.
I.
Michelle Dawson.
I.
Olivia Silver.
I.
Tanner Zone.
Do promise or declare
Promise or declare
that I will support the Constitution of the United States,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States.
and that I will be faithful
And I will be faithful.
and bear true allegiance to the state of Maryland,
And bear true allegiance to the state of Maryland.
and support the Constitution
And support the Constitution.
and laws thereof,
And laws thereof.
and that I will,
And that I will,
to the best of my skill and judgment,
to the best of my skill and judgment,
diligently and faithfully,
diligently and faithfully,
without partiality or prejudice,
without partiality or prejudice,
execute the office of Deputy Sheriff for Calvert County
execute the office
according to the Constitution and laws of this state, and that I will not, for lucre or malice, delay any person applying to me for any business belonging to the office I officiate in, and that I will not directly or indirectly ask, take, exact, demand, receive from, or charge to any such person for my own use any fee or reward whatsoever for any services that I may do as deputy of said office, and that in making out the office fees, I will not wittingly or willingly charge other or higher fees than allowed by law. Congratulations.
Now we'll be proceeding to the badge pinning. Captain Cox will be pinning Tyrell Claggett. Sheriff Evans pinning Michelle Dawson. Family member Sergeant Denton will be pinning Olivia Silver. Sheriff Evans pinning Tanner Zen. Congratulations.
Man, stand, pull up. Get a picture with this picture. When we get done, take your hand, sign your name. Ms. Harvey, you want to jump in with us?
Yeah, can we get everybody profile and kind of scooch in as much as you can? And, if you wanna kind of move to the back row, just, and then find a hole.
Come on back here with us. You want to sit in the chair?
Yeah, maybe one over on this side here. Two, that's cool, yeah. You should keep going over to this side and we'll balance it out.
We're out of balance.
Awesome. Okay. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, absolutely. Anyone else want to grab photos?
Statue is the first picture. Mr. James, sign the form.
Congratulations. Thanks. Here you go. Congratulations. Here you go. Congratulations.
Why are you shaking hands?
Great seeing you.
Thanks again, Commissioner, appreciate it.
Yes, sir, Sheriff.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
I think so. You doing this one?
It don't matter.
So, just want to take this opportunity to thank and congratulate those young men
We
and
need to
women.
sign it.
And want to also thank their families, and because it's quite an achievement. And in today's environment where, not everybody wants to be a police officer, we really commend these young men and women for stepping up. So, thank you. I don't know what y'all are doing today. So the next item on the agenda is a recognition, and the first one is for Leadership Southern Maryland graduates. Director.
Morning, Commissioners. Mary Beth
Morning.
Cook, Director of Planning and Zoning. I'm here today as one of the board members from Leadership Southern Maryland. And with me is our new Executive Director, Sybil Anderson. So it's really nice she could be here today to help us recognize these graduates. I would like to thank you on behalf of the board for your continued support of all of the Leadership Southern Maryland programs, including the executive and LEAP, letting county staff, giving them time and tuition to attend these programs. So first up is our executive program graduates. The executive program is a 9-month program for which they go through education, public safety, defense and industry, healthcare, housing and human services, energy and environment, economic development, and workforce, along with Multiculturalism and Diversity Day. So as part of this program, they get to go to a lot of really cool places. I remember when I was in the program, standing between the 2 reactors at the power plant was like the highlight of my class because I just geeked out being an engineer. So I would like to recognize the graduates. David Canning from the Sheriff's Office could not be with us today. John J.R. Cosgrove from Public Works, if you could come up. And Rachel O'Shea from Planning and Zoning. And if we could get a picture with these graduates from the executive committee?
Do they want to say anything?
I would like to thank the commission for the opportunity to go through this program. Anybody that does have the opportunity should really do it because it was a lot of fun, but we learned a lot and you get to see different places throughout Southern Maryland that I hadn't had the opportunity to see before and meet new faces. And I'll have those relationships for a long time, so thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. Apparently JR failed the public speaking part of the program, but I'm sure he feels the same way. Don't you, JR?
Yes.
Less is more.
Come on up, we'll take a picture.
We kind of scooch everyone down this way, bounce it out a little bit. Down this way. Can we scooch you over? Here we go. 1, 2, 1, 2. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you.
Congratulations.
So next, we would like to recognize those who graduated from our Emerging Leader Program. So as a board member, several years ago, we recognized a need that we were missing a whole group of individuals who were new to leadership or were just being promoted into positions and were applying for the executive program, but maybe weren't quite ready. So we had a class project create a new program, which was called Emerging Leaders. And they go through several experiences, as they call them, to facilitate, foster, and refine their individual leadership through self-discovery, teamwork, and networking on their journey through becoming a new leader. So from Human Resources, we have Joelle Frank. From Planning and Zoning, Will Hager. And from the Department of Public Works, Division of Buildings and Grounds, Marie Parker.
Pretty much what Rachel said about the executive program. Thank you for allowing and encouraging us to do things like this. It's a great program, and I also encourage anyone who's interested to apply. It was a really good experience.
Good.
Joel, you can move the
Since you spoke, you can come forward.
And I'll thank the commissioners as well, and of course, Mary Beth for nominating me for the program. And I'll just second what Joelle spoke to, which is if you're considering a program like this, I would absolutely recommend going forward and getting this experience.
Will, you follow.
I'd like to thank the commissioners also. I would like to thank my boss, Tom Jones, for nominating me. It was a great class. We did the Christmas in April program for a 70-year-old resident who was really happy. It was a time for the class to get to know each other a little bit better, and it was a great experience. I recommend it.
Very good.
Michelle, slightly this way, please. Awesome. Here we go. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Congratulations. You gonna get out here now? Congratulations.
You're supposed to pull it into camera shot.
It's not quite 10.
I know.
Jump ahead of proclamation.
Yep. So the next item on the agenda is a public hearing, but since we are not at 10:30, which was the advertised time, we will move forward to proclamation. Commissioner Hart?
Yes, sir. Good morning, and do we have someone here this morning on behalf of CASA? I'm sorry, Calvert Alliance Against Substance Abuse. We have someone here this morning for proclamation?
Apparently not.
Yeah, we're a little early. What time was that one?
Yeah,
Yes.
come on up.
Welcome.
Okay, well, good morning.
Candy's usually always here for this.
We're not that early.
Intervention awareness. I think that would help, and I can have. bring them
Sure,
all up.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Hello, I am Jane Bennett from Emmanuel Church Celebrate Recovery. We're on the front lines dealing with the opioid epidemic in our communities and with all grieving families. I'm one of many who have been handing out purple light bulbs to our community these past couple weeks, and the response has been touching.
So many people just break down and cry as they put that light bulb in their hands. They've lost so many loved ones. It's time to break the stigma of drug overdose and mental illness in our county and save lives.
Good morning. My name is Nita Ray, and I'm with Calvert County Behavioral Health, the Health Department, and I manage all of the non-crisis grants. So I know my staff isn't here, so they don't want to stand up and come forward, but they're the ones that's doing all the hard work. So I'm going to ask Megan, Caitlin, and Chelsea to come forward as well. This Wednesday, tomorrow, is International Overdose Awareness Month, which is an international celebration, and it's a vigil that we're having actually at the beach. And one of the things that we do during this month is on September the 10th, we will have Recovery Fest, which will be at the Calvert County Museum on September the 18th. And Candy is a big part of this, and Costa's sponsoring. And she did? I'm sorry. Come on, Candy. No. Candace can take this over.
We're early. We're fine.
And she already shared about the purple light bulbs. It's like you light up purple. So we'll light up the health department purple. We asked the hospital to light up. Actually, on September the 18th, we'll actually have the color run if we have running hair. We welcome everybody to come and join us there to celebrate people in recovery. And this is a way that we can think about everybody being inclusive when it comes to recovery, whether it's substance use disorder, whether it's opioid disorder. So, Candy, is there anything else you want to add?
No, I apologize, no.
Yeah, and also for the health department, what we also do during Recovery Month, and Megan's a big part of this, we do ongoing classes with people in recovery at On Our Own, which is one of our centers here as well as one of our partners. So we're excited about tomorrow night, and we welcome everybody to come out and join with us. So I'm asking all my staff to come up here to take a picture.
Come on.
Yeah, good morning, Commissioners. My name's Andrea McDonald-Finglin. I'm also with the Health Department. I'm the director over at the local Behavioral Health Authority. Our mission is to ensure that all Calvert County residents have access to the behavioral health services and supports that they will need to be successful. So we're here to celebrate International Overdose Awareness Day and the fight to end overdose, as well as to celebrate Recovery Month in the month of September. And we want to thank you so much for your recognition and your interest in supporting the work that we do. My LBJ team is also here as well, and we're all coming up for the picture. So thank you so much.
I'll second that.
We went from nobody to a full board.
Can I just add a few comments, if you don't mind? I'm Candace DiAgostino, the coordinator of the Calvert Alliance Against Substance Abuse, and I do apologize for being a little late. I did want to share, and Anita might have already shared this about the purple light bulbs, but the past week and a half, we've distributed over 1,300 light bulbs in the county. And I did want to thank the staff at Sneed's Ace Homeware Center in Owings and Lusby, the Calvert Library in Prince Frederick and Solomons, and the towns of Chesapeake Beach and North Beach for their help in distributing those light bulbs. So, and I think everyone here that's standing in front of you volunteered at those tables, and they also did some Narcan training when they were out there. So I did want to say that. So thank you very much. I'm going to take the picture.
We got people to take pictures.
We got people to do that.
Over on this side, if you can turn towards the middle a little bit, it'll shrink it. Shrink that, and Kevin will.
Did you want the picture?
We got the proclamation.
Picture already?
Picture first?
Did you're
They're
lining them up, or?
I'm just lining them up.
Go ahead and read.
Well, before I read this, and you're so right, everybody has been touched by this. Yesterday is the anniversary of a young lady, real close friend of our family's, really affects us. We've known her since she was very young, watched her get into her career, just a personality that takes over the room, and lost her fight with that, and way too young. I mean, way too young, and I never saw it come. And I'm sure there's probably a lot of people who say the same thing. I mean, I guess maybe if you work in it every day, you notice certain things. But, whenever I saw this young lady, she was upbeat. We talked and carried on like normal. I mean, and it's not like there was these visible signs like she visibly looked like she was sick or whatever. And just when I heard it, you know, and everybody around her still feeling it. I mean, I don't think you ever get over, especially something like that, you know, and it should never happen, you know, and unfortunately it's still happening. And so thank you, because you can't stop. You can't stop fighting to try to at least get to these people and whatever you do. And God knows I've talked to from doctors to pharmacists. I mean, nobody has the magic solution. So I think you just can't stop trying. So thank you so much. So I'm going to read this here. It says, whereas August 31st, 2022, the Calvert Alliance Against Substance Abuse, Twin Beach Opiate Abuse Awareness Committee, and Calvert County partners are sponsoring International Overdose Awareness Day in Calvert County. And whereas we recognize the purpose of the International Overdose Awareness Day as remembering loved ones lost to overdose, supporting those in recovery, and ending the stigma of drug-related deaths. Whereas since 2015, Calvert County has lost 163 residents to overdose death, together with countless more affected forever. We resolve to play our part in reducing the toll of overdose in our community. And whereas we affirm that overdose does not discriminate, and the people affected by overdose are our family, friends, co-workers, and who are deserving of our love, compassion, and support. Now therefore be it proclaimed by the Board of Calvert County Commissioners of Calvert County that August 31, 2022 be known as International Overdose Awareness Day in Calvert County. Be it further proclaimed that all citizens are called upon to join the Calvert Alliance Against Substance Abuse Twin Beach Opiate Abuse Awareness Committee and their partners to support overdose awareness initiatives and participate in the International Overdose Awareness Day activities. Given under our hands and sealed this 30th day of August 22nd, signed by all 5 commissioners.
Yup. 1, 2, 3. Thank you all.
So good to see you.
We need to get to 10:30, so keep ready.
Couple different angles here.
Thank you.
Thank you all for what you
Thank
do.
you. No worries. We were early. We're early. Yeah.
Jennifer's texting me.
Take care. Thank you.
Well, we'll do it again.
Yeah, we can do it again.
I'll be back on my desk. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
Yeah, so just while we're on this topic, there is a ceremony tomorrow night in North Beach at the Pavilion on the Boardwalk to recognize those that lost their lives. And I believe it's at 6:30. Jennifer? 7:30 to 9 for anyone who's interested in attending. 7:30 to 9, North Beach at the Pavilion on the Boardwalk. Next item on the agenda, because we're not at 10:30 yet, would be appointments. Deputy Director Vasallo.
Good morning, Commissioners. You have one appointment today for the Calvert County Ethics Commission. Staff is requesting that you reappoint Thomas McLaren from the alternate position to a new term as a full voting member, and also appoint Timothy Cox as the alternate member. Once you make those appointments, there will be no vacancies left on that board.
Move that we reappoint Thomas McLaren from the alternate position to a new term as a full voting member and appoint Timothy Cox as an alternate member of the Ethics Commission.
Second.
I have a motion and a second that we reappoint Thomas McLaren from the alternate position to a new term as a full voting member and appoint Timothy Cox as an alternate member of the Ethics Commission. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
Votes 4-0 with one abstention. Motion carries. Thank you. that gets us to 10:30. We have a public hearing scheduled at this time. Department of Finance and Budget. Director Strand.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Sharon Strand, the Director of Finance and Budget.
I'm Julie Oberg, Director of Economic Development.
Hillary Daly, Tourism Program Specialist.
Good morning.
Good morning. Background. On May 29th, 2022, State Legislature passed House Bill 842, titled Calvert County Hotel Rental Tax Distribution of Revenue, which took effect July 1st, 2022. Discussion. The purpose of this bill was to allocate a portion of hotel tax to a new fund, Fund 33, to provide grants to businesses and organizations to pay the application and permit fees required by the county to hold special events and to market Calvert County. House Bill 842 was written that the balance of the collections be distributed to Fund 33 after the required distributions are made to the municipalities for the revenue attributed to a hotel located in municipalities, and a reasonable administrative fee be distributed to the general fund, which equals 5%. The distributions for the municipalities are not budgeted in the general fund budget. Also stated in the House Bill, is that any unspent distributions at the end of the fiscal year in Fund 33 shall be distributed back to the general fund. Due to the timing of this bill, it was not included in the fiscal year 2023 budget. Fiscal impact. In fiscal year 2023, the county budgeted $500,000 in hotel tax in the general fund. Using the above-mentioned calculation of 5% for an administrative fee, $25,000 will remain in the general fund, and $475,000 will be budgeted in the new fund, Fund 33. And by allocating 20% or $95,000 to special events, and the remainder of $380,000 to marketing. Conclusion recommendation. Staff requests that the Board of County Commissioners close the record, approve budget adjustment 036, and sign the attached resolution. I have set up or put up a sign-in sheet for anyone who would like to comment on the public hearing. Anyone signed up? And no one has signed up. Are there any calls online for anyone who would like to speak during the public hearing?
Mr. Cormer would like to make a comment.
Good.
Are you there, Mr. Cormer?
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me now?
Yes, good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Joseph Cormier. I'm from Owens, Maryland. I was reading through this memo and I was confused. Do we not already have a budget for advertising that we need to add another $400,000 on top of? And for this $100,000 of permit grants, how are those grants going to be determined? Are there certain strings attached to it? Has to be a certain kind of event? Does it have to be, X amount of people? Does it have to be a certain, if it's something inappropriate like a liquor store or something X-rated, can the county deny that permit? I just want to know that there's a process in place that we're not just handing out money to businesses that don't necessarily need it. And I want to make sure it focuses on small business first, but not multinational billion-dollar company. Thank you so much.
Are there any other speakers?
There are no additional speakers at this time.
Thank you.
So you heard the comment from the caller. Is there a plan on allocation and criteria for that allocation?
Yes, we're going to be developing that.
So that comes after the fact. And we're adjusting the budget based on fiscal year '23. And we did have an earlier discussion about how that revenue is going to be impacted by a transition. Is that accounted for in this budget adjustment?
What do you mean by transition?
So, since the Hotel and Solomons is transitioning to assisted living, we talked earlier about the reduction in hotel tax that's going to be collected. And it appears that that was a significant number when the total is $500,000. So, when we do the budget adjustment, have you accounted for that so that we don't come up short?
We have not accounted for that in fiscal year 2023 because the deadline keeps moving as when that transition will occur. But we will keep a look in on the actual receipts versus the budget to make sure that it's not exceeded.
Right, so your expenditures won't occur until after the collection to make sure that we don't over budget.
Correct. And we will adjust for that in 2024 once everything has been finalized.
Excellent.
Commissioners, if I may, Mark Willis, County Administrator, on both of those topics brought up by the President, you know, the idea of how those monies will be replaced within the budget, that's something that we're always looking at. It goes without saying that when money moves from one pot to another, in the process of us getting ready for the next budget, we take a look at that, and that starts right now, to be quite honest. I have a meeting with the Director of Finance, Sharon Strand, next week, and the process of that, or the purpose of that meeting is to discuss guidance going forward, and that would then be brought before the Board of County Commissioners to give us that guidance. So where those monies would come from would be decided at that point. And all money is meaningful, but in the bigger picture, it's a fairly small amount of money to make adjustments within, but we will do that. Also, economic development already has an amount of money that they can currently use to project out what they need to do from an economic department standpoint. So this will really just catch up. They are working on that plan. That's something that they brought before us, the notion of that, you know, a long time ago. They just have to develop that plan. So it is something we're thinking about. For Mr. Comier, we know that we have to make those adjustments as we go forward. And I think the big thing that was pointed out is any monies left over go back into the general fund. So.
And wasn't the intent of the legislation to ensure that at least that percentage of money got spent for that intended purpose?
Correct. That's the intent in setting up the new fund, that the hotel tax would pay for the special events and the marketing. You know, as we go through the year, you know, some years will be better than the others, especially during some of the impacts that COVID has had in limiting some of the events that we typically have. So we will be looking at that and making adjustments for that at the end of the fiscal year, if it's not, especially this is a new year, the first year of use too.
Right.
So we will be looking at that for this year and going forward.
Excellent. Any other questions? Actions? Motions? I can't make motions.
Mr. President, I move that we close the record and approve and adopt the resolution enacting budget adjustment number 036 and approve and adopt the ordinance repealing and readopting with amendments the accommodations tax at Chapter 136, Article 4 of the Calvert County Code.
Second.
A motion and a second that we close the record, approve and adopt the resolution enacting budget adjustment 036 and approve and adopt the ordinance repealing and readopting with amendments the accommodations tax at Chapter 136, Article 4 of the Calvert County Code. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is new business. Item 1. Since Mr. Norris isn't with us today,
Good morning, Commissioners. Pam Lucas on behalf of John Norris, who, in addition with the Ethics Commission members, provided the presentation that I will be presenting on his behalf today. I have with me Mr. Thomas McLaren, who is with the Ethics Commission. I believe Mr. Raymer.
He's not on yet. He's slated for the next 5 minutes.
Okay, Mr. Raymer will be joining us via Teams. I would like to say that Mr. John Norris is also available via Teams. Like I said, he was the individual, along with the Ethics Commission, who prepared this ordinance update. However, he could not be present with us this morning. So if you have any questions, comments, what have you, he is available via Teams for your questions. I will begin by reading the memorandum provided by Mr. Norris to you for the public. Background. The importance of the role of the Ethics Commission cannot be overstated. The General Assembly wrote, "Our system of representative government is dependent on maintaining the highest trust by the people in their government, officials, and employees, finds and declares that the people have a right to be assured that the impartiality and independent judgment of those officials and employees will be maintained. The Calvert County Ethics Commission has delegated authority to implement the local ethics code and recommend actions to uphold the public trust. The Ethics Commission seeks amendment to the local ethics code required by changes to state law and some that have been recommended by the State Ethics Commission. The recommended changes are set forth within the attached presentation. The State Ethics Commission has reviewed and approved the proposed amendments subject to a future public hearing and your subsequent approval. Fiscal impact, none. Conclusion recommendation, permission to advertise the 14 recommended changes is respectfully requested." So, if I see the ordinance is pulled up, updates. Make sure I get this correct. Okay. So the background. The principal goal of the Calvert County Ethics Code is to further the public's trust in those who govern their community, to put their personal interests aside and in favor of the public interest. And also these ethics rules define the minimum regulations and obligations government officials and employees have toward the public where a conflict of interest arise or if they are perceived. So if there is a perception that there could be a a conflict of interest, then the ethics code is applicable as well. Purpose. The purpose of this presentation today is for the continuous development and refinement of the ethics ordinance, its minimum standards to ensure the continuity of trust that adapts to the changing environment of today. The Ethics Commission has reviewed the current ethics code and has made certain recommendations for revisions, some of which are required by the state and therefore are mandatory by state law, and others that are optional refinements deemed worthy by the Ethics Commission of adoption. First Amendment. This is an optional amendment, and it's the definition of interest in Section 41-2. It is to also exclude exchange-traded funds and mutual funds. Interest is a defined term of art in the Ethics Code, and it intends to define a close relationship between the filer of a financial disclosure statement and an asset, whereby the filer's actions or inactions as a public employee could directly influence the value of the asset. As a class of assets, it has been recommended that exchange-traded funds and mutual funds are not under sufficient control of a filer to warrant diluting the financial disclosure statement with this extraneous information. And I'd like to stop to say, Mr. McLaren, if you have any comments as I go along, please do not hesitate to interrupt, as well as Mr. Norris and Mr. Raymer, who are online via Teams. Amendment number 2, to add a definition of quasi-governmental entity. And the quasi-governmental entity is an entity that is created by state statute that performs a public function, but it is also supported in whole or in part by the state, but is managed privately. This is a mandatory amendment and is related to a later amendment to preclude the disclosure of the amount of consideration received from UMMS, which is University of Maryland medical systems, state or local governmental entities, and quasi-governmental entities. Amendment number 3 is to add a new subpart 4 at section 41-13A of the code. This is another mandatory amendment and creates a reverse post-employment restriction of 1 year for lobbyists who become officials or employees. This does not apply to uncompensated or minimally compensated, which is less than $12,000, board or commission members or elected officials. Amendment number 4, another mandatory amendment to add a new subpart E at section 41-14A3. And this is to prohibit the knowing acceptance of a gift from associations engaged in representing counties or municipal corporations. So if there is an organization or an association that is providing a gift to you, that is prohibited if you know that they are representing a county or municipal corporation. Amendment number 5. It's another mandatory amendment to repeal and readopt 41-13F of the code, such that it adds former officials and employees to the group that is generally precluded from disclosing confidential information acquired in his or her official public position for his or her own private gain or that of another. Amendment 6. It's a mandatory amendment to add a new subpart J to section 41-13 of the code. And this amendment prohibits retaliation against an individual for reporting or participating in an investigation of a potential violation of the ethics code. Amendment 7, a mandatory amendment to add a new subpart D to section 41-15A1 of the ethics code. This amendment will require disclosure of trade names and doing business as names. You often see that as DBA, and that's interpreted to mean doing business as names, where a business name is required to be disclosed. Amendment number 8, a mandatory amendment to repeal and readopt 41-15A2D of the code with amendments, and this changes the length of time a candidate has to cure an overdue disclosure from 20 days to 8 days after written notice of the failure to file is provided by the county clerk or the Board of Elections supervisor. Amendment 9, proposed Amendment 9, a mandatory amendment to repeal and readopt 41-15A3D1 of the code with amendments. And this amendment extends the gift reporting requirement to include those in excess of $20 or a series of gifts with a cumulative value of $100 from an association or an entity, as I noted before, acting on behalf of an association that is engaged only in representing counties or municipal corporations. Amendment 10, a mandatory amendment to add new subparts 3, 4, and 5 to section 41-15A3H of the code. Now, this amendment requires an individual to disclose financial or contractual relationships with UMMS, University of Maryland Medical System, a governmental entity of the state or a local government in the state, or a quasi-governmental entity of the state or local government in the state. For each, the filer must include a description of the relationship, the subject matter of the relationship, and the consideration. And finally, if the filer's spouse is a lobbyist regulated by the county, the individual must disclose the entity that has engaged the spouse for lobbying purposes. Amendment 11, a mandatory requirement to repeal and readopt 41-15A4B of the code with amendments. And this amendment is redefining the attributable interest in business entities that must be disclosed. And it's changing from an interest held by a business entity in which the individual held a 30% or greater interest to, number 1, a business entity in which the individual held a 10% or greater interest. Number 2, a business entity described in the former part 1 of this subsection in which the business entity held a 25% or greater interest. 3, a business entity described in subpart 2 of this subsection in which the business entity held a 50% or greater interest. And 4, a business entity in which the individual directly or indirectly, through an interest in one or combination of other business entities, holds a 10% or greater interest.
Pam,
Yes.
can you go back, could you give me some examples of each one of those?
1, 2, 3, and 4.
Yes.
For example, if you have a business entity, for example, says it holds a 10% or greater interest. So essentially, for all of them, I can basically sum up in Mr. McLaren or John or Mr. Raymer who are on the line. If indeed you hold an interest in a business, it could be a small part. For example, an individual often will be a member of an LLC, and they may not have as great an interest in a company. They think that perhaps holding a small interest such as 10% or 25% and not owning the business as a whole would not enable them or make them necessarily have to provide the information to the county, or in this case, the state, and filing it on their form, whereas indeed you must put that on your form if you hold a 10%, 25%, 50%, or each of those are defined in 1 through 4. I think that oftentimes individuals, if they believe that they don't own the business outright, they don't need to disclose that they are a part of it. If there's any additional comments, then Mr. McLaren
No,
will have
this
to
is
make
state
comment.
mandated, right?
Yeah,
This is our-
this is a mandatory amendment by the state. John Norris, if there are any comments that you may have, or Mr. Raymer, who I believe is online as well now.
Yep, President Hans, this is a very good question. It's looking at a tiered system where you, as an individual, hold a 10% interest in, let's use Pam's example of an LLC that holds a 25% interest in a professional limited liability company that holds a 50% interest in a joint venture or general partnership. So it's looking at the tiered business interests. And I think it's trying to address a problem that we may not have here in Calvert County, but exists elsewhere in the state.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, subpart, I don't know how to get that, oh, there we go. Amendment 12. This is another mandatory amendment to add new subparts 5 and 6 to section 41-15G of the code, and it's precluding public access to information related to consideration received from the University of Maryland Medical System, a government entity of the state or local government in the state, or a quasi-governmental entity of the state or local government. For statements filed after January 1, 2019, it's precluding public access to an individual's home address, and I think that's for obvious reasons. Amendment number 13 is an optional amendment to repeal and readopt with amendment to section 41-16B1 of the code, and it's requiring that lobbyists who serve on county boards and commissions and are disqualified for participating in a specific matter to file a statement of recusal. And finally, amendment number 14 is another optional amendment to begin to plan for the public being provided internet access through an online registration system to the financial disclosure statements submitted by local elected officials, candidates for office, and heads of principal departments. That concludes the presentation. If you have any questions or final comments, I will answer them as best I can. If not, I could defer to Mr. Norris, who's online, who prepared the presentation in conjunction with the Ethics Commission members. Obviously, like I noted before, Mr. McLaren and Mr. Raymer, who are Ethics Commission members, are available for any questions or concerns noted by the Ethics Commission as a whole as well. Thank you.
Do you want to add anything, Mr. McLaren?
No, sir.
No?
Thank you for making me a permanent member. Appreciate that.
You're welcome. Questions?
It's not so much a question, potentially, as a rhetorical question. You mentioned state code. Are we replicating or tightening up some of the state or the local county provisions based on the state's provisions.
Yeah, we're mandated by the state to amend our ethics code based on their input.
Okay. Thank you.
I think it's important, the job you do. I mean, let's face it, politicians, first thing comes to mind to everybody. They don't understand, that there's a lot of regulation, there's a lot of oversight, and not that there isn't proof upon proof upon proof of abuse of the system, but especially in a small town where your name, your word, you know everybody. So John Norris will tell you, everything I do, I go, John, is that okay? John, I mean, it's just, it's a small town, so it's, thank you for that, and it's important that, especially for transparency, that, you guys, are there, and so, I appreciate it. I mean, especially, like, say, there's so many moving parts, so many times,
Yes, there
and, it's just, I thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a motion that we authorize staff to proceed to advertise a public hearing on amendments to the Calvert County Ethics Code, please.
Second?
I have a motion and a second that we proceed to advertise a public hearing on amendments to the Calvert County Ethics Code. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
The vote's 4-0, one abstention. Motion passes. So are there currently openings on the Ethics Commission?
Currently, no, after your approval today.
Excellent. Very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Next item under new business, Department of Community Resources, Transportation Services for Election Day. Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
Commissioners, Department of Community Resources Director Jennifer Moreland. As you know, we always get some questions about the election and our transportation planning. So Sandy Wobbleton, our Division Chief for Public Transportation, is here with a memo to discuss this with you.
Background. Calvert County Transportation adheres to the official list of legal holidays according to the Personnel Chapter of the Calvert County Code 86-3-601, including Election Day, when observed during a primary election year. In the past, Calvert County Public Transportation Services have been suspended on this day due to the division following the official county holiday schedule. Discussion. Public Transportation would like to provide full transportation services on November 8th, 2022, in order to be available for individuals that may need to utilize public transportation to access polling sites. Additionally, transportation would assist those individuals who need services for employment and medical appointments, as this day is not observed as a holiday by retail establishments and medical facilities. Fiscal impact. Funds have already been incorporated in the FY 2023 operating budget. Conclusion and recommendation. It is requested the Board of County Commissioners approve transportation services for Election Day, November 8th, 2022.
So, in addition to requesting support for this, for public transportation, to have our staff on board on a holiday, a normal holiday, we also wanted to let you know that we work with other transportation partners. So if there are areas within our route that aren't within our service area, we can refer citizens to Lifestyles of Maryland, of Southern Maryland, that do also have transportation available.
And the estimated cost?
For seniors, $5. So it's reasonable. I can't say about your cost.
Yeah, I mean, it would be, I
varies.
could look it up to see exactly, but it would be salary-based.
Yeah.
And just gasoline. Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, it's, everything's already put in for the.
Something we've done in the
2024.
past. And an individual can call up and request the service, correct?
Yes, we would run our regular route service as well as our specialized service. So if they needed, if it was their own appointment-based service, yes, they would call. But otherwise, they would be on just our regular, run full service.
We certainly want to give them every opportunity to vote.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
It's very important. Any other questions, comments? Actions? Motion?
Mr. President, I'll make a motion to approve the transportation services for the Election Day, November 8, 2022.
Second?
I have a motion and a second that we approve the provision of transportation services for Election Day, November 8th, 2022. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good day. Next item under new business, Department of Parks and Recs, memorandum of understanding with the Calvert County Board of Education. Director Nazal, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Shannon Nazal, Director of Parks and Recreation. I'll go ahead and read the memo. Beginning in 2017, the Department of Parks and Recreation, or CCPR, worked with the Board of Education of Calvert County on a memorandum of understanding to formalize the mutual use of public facilities operated both by the BOE and CCPR. The MOU was executed June 18, 2019. It is set to expire October 31, 2022. The updated draft document has been reviewed by both Calvert County government and BOE staff and has been approved for legal sufficiency. Discussion. CCPR utilizes indoor facilities to operate programs for community benefit, such as basketball, cheerleading, and wrestling. The department also utilizes and maintains outdoor facilities at 11 locations for programs that provide community benefit, such as baseball, soccer, and lacrosse. The BOE utilizes the Edward T. Hall Aquatic Center and Chesapeake Hills Golf Course for high school sports teams to practice and hold competitions. In addition, there is an occasional need for the BOE to use ball fields or tennis courts if their own facilities are under repair or renovation. This document outlines the duties and responsibilities of each party as it relates to maintenance, communication, scheduling, and reimbursements. Fiscal impact. CCPR is charged for use of indoor school facilities after normal hours of operation to offset direct expenditures. This can range from $7,000 to over $10,000 per season. This is budgeted through the current operating expenditures. The use of county facilities for the BOE include no cost use for the Edward T. Hall Aquatic Center and Chesapeake Hills Golf Course for high school teams. If applying the reduced rate, it is an approximate annual loss in revenues of $13,100 for the Edward T. Hall Aquatic Center and $10,720 for the Chesapeake Hills Golf Course. In conclusion recommendation, staff recommends that the Board of County Commissioners authorize the President to execute the memorandum of understanding with the Calvert County Board of Education for use of facilities for recreation purposes. And I'll answer any questions if you have any.
Questions?
Whoa.
Everybody jump in at once?
Commissioner Gadway.
Good afternoon, Director, or good morning still, I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
In going through this, it posed a couple of questions to me, and I just want to understand. In the past, it appears that we as the county government are using the taxpayers' dollars to pay the Board of Education twice for the same facility. Once to build it and maintain it, and then again to use it for something outside of students or possibly even during school activities. Is that going to be changing, or are we still going to be paying for the same facilities in the regular budget that we give the school system, and then additionally on top of that, or is that being taken out?
What we are paying for is for the direct staffing cost after normal school hours. So we are paying for that use after school hours.
Okay, and are we still charging, I saw a couple of the tables and matrix in there, is the charging of the aquatic center for school activities and the golf course for golfing, is that new or is that existing and just continuing?
That's continuing. So that has not changed. So we offer a certain amount of time at no cost, and then anything additional over what is agreed upon would be paid by the school system for additional use of the facility.
Does the school system allow you guys to use anything at no cost like we do to them? Or is it always at cost?
So we do not have any charges for use of the outdoor field locations. We're also maintaining those. But as far as indoor locations, if it is after school hours, or after their normal hours of operation, there would be a charge. The only time where there's not a charge is certain days of the week in the summer where they already have staff at the school, and we're able to use certain locations within the school at no additional charge because they already have staff there.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Hart?
So, in touching a little bit on what Commissioner Gadway said, and, because we've had those discussions over the years of, we've sent crews down to clean up baseball fields loaded with rocks and things of that nature. So, I know we intersect, the school system and us all the time, but business speaking wise, I don't know that it's a large sum of money that's transferred back and forth. Is it cost effective to, because somebody has to write the check, account for it, log the hours, as a business person, every time somebody touches something, the meter's running, that, I'm not saying that, one side gets more use than the other side, but we do touch each other's stuff so often that is the juice really worth the squeeze? I mean, is it really that large amount of money that, you know what I mean? It's, I don't know where I'm trying to go here, but you know what I'm saying with,
Understood.
it's a
So
lot of, yeah.
as we worked in negotiating this agreement with the school system, originally back in 2018, that was a sticking point that they wanted to make sure that was remaining in the agreement, was the payment for direct costs after school hours. So that was something that we had to compromise on in order to make sure that we had an agreement to best serve the citizens.
So do we charge when we're cutting grass and taking care of fields and stuff?
We do not.
Because I know fields that we do that on a regular basis.
That comes out of our operating budget.
So, and I'm just trying to best use of taxpayer dollars. I mean, we're doing all something. I mean, I know for a fact fields that we're cut every week. I mean, I see it, that I know that we're doing, and I don't understand why charging on the other side. I mean,
So if I could give a little bit of history. So when there was an additional need for ball fields in the county, there was an agreement at the time with the school system to say that the county would redevelop the recess fields, which were not good enough for ball fields. They were, recess play areas. And so it was determined by the county at the time to redo those fields in order to make them playable for youth sports. And in that, we maintained the maintenance of those locations because it was not a priority of the schools to have youth sports after hours. And that, I believe, is still maintained as we're still maintaining those fields, because it's important for us as the county to offer that service, but it's not a priority of the schools to maintain them for after-hours youth sports services.
and you and I, we've talked about that, but we're all supposed to be on the same team. At the end of the day, we're all supposed, they're all our kids. We're all, and that's where, I mean, I don't even know I see this, $10,000 per season. I don't know how many seasons this is, but I don't want to say petty, but it feels petty to me because we do a whole lot, and I'm not trying to, I know this is always such a touchy subject, but it just feels petty that we would get a bill when we don't send a bill. I mean, we're not sending a bill for grass cutting services or the maintaining of anything. I mean, it's, and somebody has to process that. Somebody has to log it. How many hours? I mean, it just seems like it's a waste of money. Where, I mean, if they need something, we do it. If we need something, they do it. I mean, it ought to be on the same team. And I've had people throw to me how other jurisdictions have been so successful. Like, well, they work together. and stuff. And I mean, I think trying to get there, this just drives a wedge in trying to get to work. I mean, just my 20% of working together where it shouldn't be somebody counting pennies. And maybe I'm wrong, but it's just how it feels.
While I've only experienced one budget cycle, I do remember trying to get involved in it and trying to understand it pretty deeply this last summer. I'm pretty sure that there was a line item that was specified in the Calvert County School System's budget request that we had paid for field maintenance and stuff like that. I didn't realize that we were paying them for the field maintenance, but then also going out and doing the field maintenance from Public Works or Parks and Rec.
I believe those would be likely the difference between elementary and middle school fields versus high school fields.
But all of those fields are under the ultimate control of the Calvert County Public School System, correct?
Yes, sir.
I mean, I just think we
That's
take,
confusing.
I mean, I just think we would take the money and upgrade fields. I mean, we hear it all the time. We need better fields. I don't know any idea what the total number is, Shannon, if you had to guess over a year what we spend?
I could get back to you on that.
Okay. But I mean, just any type of upgrade we could do. I mean, instead of, and I'm not asking something for nothing, but I mean, I think we do a lot to try to maintain that it's a good field, and we're not the only ones that use it. I mean,
But typically, it's, anytime I've went by a school and the fields are being occupied at a school, typically it's school-age children. It's not a large
Right, but I
amount of
mean,
adults.
like-
The
like,
adults
I
are
know
going to different
football.
parks, which we also fund, et cetera. That's you guys fund the parks. I'm just trying to,
yeah, I don't know. I guess what I'm just trying to say is just building a cohesiveness of just working together to where, it just seems like a lot of accounting for what, I mean, but that's just my 20%. I would, think we have better use for the money, I guess.
and I agree with Commissioner Hart entirely. Bottom line is, any of these dollars are coming from the taxpayers. Every single one of these dollars. And how many of these dollars, as Mike mentioned, is being tied up in the budget and finance meetings and/or budget and finance office, or your time having to account, or the school system's time having to account how many trips, how many people, and everything else. I understand that an MOU has to be in place. I've just never understood why sometimes it seems a little one-sided or biased, and why in the events that we're having to pay for the school system facilities, it can sometimes give the appearance that we're having to pay for it twice.
Understood.
Thank you.
So I just think it's an example of the philosophy at the Board of Education that we pay for 60% of the construction costs. This year, we're gonna write them a check for $140 million. And they're concerned over collecting $7,000 for us for using the fields. Just think about that, ladies and gentlemen.
I would clarify that it would be the inside the school building, not the fields, just for,
Systems.
understood.
Yeah. So just think about that. $140 million, they're worried about collecting 7,000 to 10,000. And as was stated, it's tracking and paperwork, and at the end of the day, what are they really ending up with out of it? Not even counting the free stuff we're doing for them, but
I'd
anyway.
argue they spend over $7,000 trying to collect the $7,000 from us.
I'm sure they don't, because I'm sure our director of finance makes sure they get paid and everything's accounted for.
Sure, and that's, like I say, it's and I hate coming from like the private business type thing, but there's a perception that it's government, so it's not real money. But it really is. It's real man hours. It's real times. And and that goes with anything. Every time we touch something, move something, at the end of the year, what do we hear? People say, why do you got to hire people? Every time you have to do, just like no different if you have a contractor comes out to the house and he's going to build something. The more he builds, the more he touches, the meter's running. So that's kind of like, where I'm driving here. I just think that we need better fields. And instead of putting that money in back and forth or, put it into the field, and I don't know. Just, Commissioner Hand said it perfect. That's, so. My 20%.
Any other questions, discussion?
What are the ramifications if this is not approved? I'm just asking. I mean, it's a legit question.
I assume that we would still utilize the fields and still utilize the facilities, so we didn't impact the public's use. There would just not be an agreement in place on any of the requirements for providing schedules and the funding mechanisms and that sort of thing. But I would assume that the public use would stay the same.
I would love, and I know Dr. Townsell has already read this and approved it, but if he came in and this was past practice or this or that, he's a new guy, he's a new superintendent. I'd love to hear what his thoughts would be on altering this to where, you know what, we don't have to come back a year from now and discuss this and try and figure out where that $7,000 to $10,000 is going to go and come from.
And we just work together.
Right. It's a perfect opportunity. We got a new superintendent.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
Just as we build new schools, we write it in the contract. We get to use them.
I don't know, maybe I'm just from a whole different time frame where here in the county, you help the guy across the street. You help the young lady across the street. We were one county, one set of folks. It wasn't, well, you use this, I want my money. Stop. You know what I mean? I mean, if I called you right now and said, hey, Shannon, we got kids playing somewhere, it isn't safe, you'd send a crew down there tomorrow or right then on the spot if you had it, and we wouldn't say a thing, right? I mean, at the end of the day, that's just so. But I love that idea. I would love to have that opportunity. Could we table this until then?
Would it be tabled or rejected at this point for another version?
Ms. Shannon,
Yes, sir.
Director, I'm going to listen to the discussions. I'll proffer a couple different options. The one option, there's three of us that aren't going to be here next year. This expires today, I believe, or tomorrow.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct?
Correct.
So I'm prepared to just move forward with the staff recommendation. Now, that is a term that goes until August 31st, 2027. I'm fine with that. If you gentlemen want me to make a motion to make the MOU until August or September 1st, 2023, I'm fine with that. I've been here 12 years. The budgetary cycle begins July 1st. You're building a budget. You can go ahead and implement modifications to alter this in 1 year, if that's what you prefer to do. I am open to anything. In the past, if I have made a legislative request for the BOE to have taxing authority that went nowhere. That's a nuclear option. So what? Well,
that goes
I mean,
that
I'm
goes
just going,
in the history. Commissioner
history.
Williams is saying that has been brought up years and years ago.
But there's ways to if the objective is to get him in here and discuss this, okay. But this isn't helping the matter today. So how about this with counselors' advice? I can make the MOU until September 1st, 2023. in order to sort this out from a budgetary perspective?
You must have seen me raise my mic here. Yes, that would be appropriate at this time. You can make the motion and see what the outcome, or what the desire of the board is at that time.
Okay.
At this time, rather, excuse me.
I'll go ahead then. Thank you, Counselor. Commissioner Gadway, did you have something to say?
We want a second for discussion. You
Well,
have a
I
motion.
haven't even made
He
a
hasn't
Oh, I'm
made a
sorry, I'm
motion.
sorry.
I was just, I had a question that was pending before you started, and
Okay.
I didn't know what.
I mean, the discussion is ongoing. I don't have to make the motion right now.
Offering some suggestions.
That's correct.
Okay.
The question that I had was, I believe, what would the I'm sorry, go ahead.
No,
because I did get the answer to the question. I didn't think I did, but I did. I apologize.
No.
Well, I think having the new superintendent in would definitely be a plus. And I don't know if we need this today.
We do, because the current one expires.
So if we have to do this one today, but with the ending date, and then a further discussion to come and say, okay, as we build this budget for '23, we would just like a working relationship. We'd like, a relationship to say, hey, is this a little redundant? Is something, are we not seeing, what are we not seeing here? Because to Commissioner Hanson's point, you write a check for $140 million, and you're like, really?
It was my understanding that my question was, if this is not approved today, what would be the outcome of the use of the facilities? And it was my understanding that, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Director, but no changes from our side would happen to the use of the facilities. We can't obviously speak for the school board and the new superintendent, but I would assume that they would not tell us no. It's just that the financial chain, there would be nothing billed because we don't have that agreement in place.
No, you shouldn't assume that.
I think they would still.
They have the option.
They have the option, right, but they have the option to tell us no. Okay.
Because you should remember, we had an incident on election day. That should tell you.
I remember.
You should not assume
We've got-
that things will just keep going if
Right.
we don't agree to pay.
We've got new superintendent in place. If we say no on this on today's date, it would encourage over the next couple of weeks to see if it's really worthwhile to chase that $7,000 to $10,000.
And I know it probably seems petty at home. It's what it says, I think, is to it too.
I would say if you are gonna have a meeting with him, maybe line up some other things instead of just having
Yeah.
this
Yeah, I
discussion on
agree.
this to
I
bring him in,
agree.
you know what I mean?
I
Get a
agree.
few things that you wanna discuss with him.
And we have made the offer, once the schools, schools get open and things get flowing. that-
Obviously, they're a little hectic over there today.
Yeah. And Shannon does have the money in her budget to do this, just for the record. So it's not like we've gotta find new money.
Right.
That's
It's been
correct.
Going on, so.
I agree.
My personal opinion is I like Commissioner Weems' suggestion, just shorten it up to a year. And then we have time.
I agree.
It's, we got
I
the
agree.
money, but it is a discussion in the future that we've all, well, at least the new board participated.
Absolutely.
Yep. Any other comments? Commissioner Weems?
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve and authorize the president to sign the memorandum of understanding, which places a date of September 1st, 2023. As read.
Have a motion and a second that we authorize the president to sign the MOU with a change of date to September 1, 2023. Is that correct, Commissioner Weems?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is the Department of Budget and Finance. Long time no see.
Well, I thought I'd give you a break. I wouldn't ask for a lot of money for a little while.
It's not even time for the CIP discussion.
No, but it's gonna start before you
Stop it.
know it.
Stop it. We're buy some window units for this coming year.
We're gonna get some fans.
Yeah, get some fans. Well, you better install some ceiling fans.
There you go. That could be another discussion topic with your, hopefully.
We're gonna make a list.
Yeah. Good morning, Commissioners. Veronica Atkinson, Capital Projects Analyst with Finance and Budget. Today, I'll start with background. There are several projects in the FY 2023 capital budget that will be funded through the sale of general obligation bonds. In the event funds are expended for the below projects prior to the bond sale or loan closing, a resolution of intent to reimburse is required to reimburse the general fund once the bonds have been sold. Discussion. Table 1 lists all of the projects that have been adopted that have bond availability for us to sell once they utilize the money. So we don't just go and sell the bonds as soon as the budget gets adopted. We wait until they start utilizing that money so that we're not paying interest on money that's just sitting in our account. Do you want me to read all of these projects?
No, we do
Thank
not.
you, Commissioner Hans. Fiscal impact is described above. Conclusion recommendation. We request that the board sign the attached resolution, which indicates the intent to reimburse the county for expenditures on specific projects that will be funded by the future sale of the general obligation bonds.
So Veronica, since we didn't read them all,
Yes, sir.
you have an idea of how many of those projects are not going to happen in the next 12 months? We've had this
12
discussion
months.
before about,
Some of them, some of the money is, I think Fairground Road is wrapping up, so that's a small amount there. I can't, to be honest with you, I can't see any that I can say off the top of my head that aren't in process of some degree, correct, because they could be in design, permitting. Some of them get a little delayed, particularly on the roads if we're negotiating easements. So sometimes that gets pushed back a little bit. But to say that, honestly, I can't find one that I could say off the top of my head that is actually not in some type of work.
okay.
So I do want to mention that I'm Sharon Stern, the Director of Finance and Budget, that typically the county will go for a bond sale annually. This year, we opted not to go for a bond sale just because we haven't had to forward fund or fund a lot of projects through a bond sale. We will relook at it in the spring to see if we need to move forward with a bond sale. So some of the projects also have other funding sources that they can use first, whether it be state funding, whether it be general fund funding. There are other funding sources on some of the projects, again, that they can use before we sell bonds. So that sometimes assists us in delaying a bond sale until we actually need it, like Veronica said prior. So that we're not sitting on the money and it's just sitting there. We want to sell the bonds for projects that are moving forward, and we typically look for a 12 to 18 month time frame going out of when they're going to need the money.
It's a balancing act, but yes, we do go in and I procure all of the grant money first. And so with Ward Farm particularly, that's one. We want to exhaust those funds before we start looking at spending our own money.
I just seem to recall some DPW projects that, have been lingering for quite a while. And we have the authority, but not sure when we're actually going to need to use that authority.
That's correct. I mean, one of the departments are working on their 2024 CIP right now. So as I work with them to go through those projects, there probably will be some public hearings coming up where we transfer some of that lingering bond or even excise tax, general fund money, any of that money that's ours, that's sitting in that project that is closing out. We could move that over to a project that's active. So that's what we're looking to do this year, is to focus a lot on that. Therefore, we wouldn't need the bond sale, so.
And I just want to let the public know that the bond authority just gives us the authority at the state level to sell bonds. It doesn't mean that we've actually spent that money. We are able to realign authority within our projects as priorities do change. And we are able to move bond proceeds, which are bonds that we have already sold, from project to different projects, again, as our priorities change. But in order to do that, we would have to bring it before the board in order to approve us changing how the proceeds are spent.
So, and how do the bond raters look at that? When we get authority to issue bonds, I assume it's like a credit card. When you take out a credit card, whatever that balance is, it automatically goes against your credit. So how do bond raters look at us sitting on a lot of authority that we may not use for a couple years?
Right, so typically, when we're working with the bond rating agencies, it's mostly looking at the debt that we have already entered into, not future debt.
So they don't care.
They look at it from a capital point of view when we do our 6-year plan and we project what we're going to sell in the next 6 years, but not as open authority. That does not come into play.
That's a great question, though, because if you have a lot of ability to borrow funds, typically that dings your credit, but they don't.
No, the state, as a policy or procedure for Calvert County government, is we typically try to ask for the entire project up front. For a school system or a new school build, that's a large number. So instead of going back over 3 years and asking and breaking it up, we ask for it all up front. So most of the, I wouldn't say most, but I would say some of the authority that's sitting out there are for schools, and that's a big chunk.
Well,
I'd be putting you on the spot to ask you for the number, right?
Well, Beach Elementary's on here at 15.
I couldn't tell you how much of authority is specifically for the school
No,
system.
just total.
I think it's 140 or.
About 131 million.
That's out
Yeah.
there right now.
Right, and that's including enterprise funds.
Yeah.
So that includes their projects as well, which they use the money that they get from the user of the services to pay back their bond debt.
Do we have a large amount coming off this year, hopefully?
Well, there's two parts to it. So I'm going to use the Solomon's Fire Department. We just asked for authority.
Sure.
That doesn't mean you haven't adopted it into the budget. So until it's adopted, they cannot spend the money. So authority is more future looking. So it's not really, I understand the correlation with the credit card, but they can't spend it until you allow them to adopt that number into the budget. And typically, with the school we could use the school, they'll do 4 years. So it's spread out over 4 years. And so each year, if you say yes, they can have the additional 2 million, will be nice. Then then we could go in and we have the option that we can then sell the bonds. But if you haven't adopted those bonds and they're just sitting over an authority, no one can spend them without the board's approval, a public hearing. Does that help? Okay.
Yeah, just watching it from year to year to year, and now with building costs, what they are,
Believe
I
me,
mean,
that's.
mercy.
That's gonna be a big struggle with our 2024 CIP is looking to
And
bridge
not to
that
g-
gap.
Yeah, and not to get into a CIP discussion, because we know, but I would think other jurisdictions are feeling the same pain, and countrywide, this price has got to come down. Who can pay it? I mean, it's so unrealistic. I mean, there's not even a basis for it. You know, you can say supply chains and stuff. What's that got to do with labor rates? You know, and I mean, that's what we're seeing. And so, and I know we're government or what have you, but I mean, it's more than just charging more for material. I mean, these rates are, they're just, it's like Fantasyland rates.
No, you're right.
I mean, to watch what I've seen, what we paid 8 years ago, to I see what the ask is now. I mean, there's no mathematical computation that can come up with that. There's no, well, it's 5% a year, so no, it was almost like a fictitious number, and I just cannot see how people are paying it.
And again, with our department, it's gonna make budgeting very difficult because, you know, a lot of the projects that they were looking at are looking at for 2023. They're having to go back now and figure out what's not gonna move forward so that they can pay for this project. And, it's very difficult right now.
And I know it gets locked in, and I've had to, and God, I'm promising not to take us down this road. We lock in on a number, and they say, well, you know, what if it goes up, we're stuck on it. But if it goes down, we make that money. There's gotta be a way to be more fluid than that. You know, there's gotta be a way to take a common sense approach to go, okay, materials truly went up, and we're in the middle of doing a project, okay, you stop and think. But if it went down, you're giving the money back. You know, I mean, you never see that. So, I think, just my 20%, projects will not get done in the timely fashion that they used to get done countrywide until some type of verbiage like that is put in there. I mean, it's irresponsible.
Yeah, I mean, they'll hold their number, I think 30 days. I mean, I know we ran into it with one project here not too long ago. But, after that, and, you know, sometimes it takes longer to get a project,
Sure.
you know, get it moving, to even let the contractor start ordering his materials. And that's another problem they're having, you know, even getting some of these things.
Oh, yeah, I know, I see it every week.
And then the manpower issue.
Every week I see it.
No one wants to carry a hammer or, you know, be outside, build something.
Any other questions?
Mr. President, I'd like to make a motion to approve and adopt a resolution to forward fund county bonds.
Second?
Have a motion and a second to approve and adopt the resolution to forward fund county bonds. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries.
Thank you.
ladies.
Thank you.
Next item on the agenda is presentation by Department of Community Resources. Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Jennifer Moreland, Director of Community Resources with you again. And to my right, I have Joan Winship, our Chair for Calvert Commission for Women. Joan has many years of experience nationally and internationally supporting women's rights issues, and we're so pleased to have her presenting on behalf of the county, the Commission for Women's really history and planning process. So, without further ado.
Welcome.
Thank you, Jennifer, and thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. I know that some of you have heard us report in the past, but I'm delighted to be able to update you because since 2020, mid-2020, when we, like many, went into a limbo period for about 6 months, we then started up again. And I would say this last year, we were doing as much programming or more. And with the benefit of being able to have our meetings in Zoom, we've had great participation of our commissioners as well as the public, as well as being able to have consultations and invite people. As the time went on over that last year and a half or so, we have experimented with in-person, with hybrid, with Zoom, and I think we've still managed to be able to look at and evaluate and see what we can do to support particularly the ideas, the concerns, and achievements of women in the county especially. So the purpose of, let me just make sure I'm doing it correctly. The purpose is to report to you about what we have been doing over these last some months. And I do want to particularly note that the Commission for Women has existed for 46 years. It's been active during that time and provided service on behalf of Calvert women and girls. I would like to mention, we just had a retreat, and this is the new group pictured there. That was last Thursday night, and we had almost everyone there. But I do want to particularly recognize and commend the retiring members in this past year who themselves served all four more than one term on the commission and provided their own expertise. That is Arian Odom, Carol Harvat, both of whom were officers, Crystal Jordan, and Nadine Hunt. And they particularly were just great members. We were sorry for one reason or another to see them retire from their service on the commission, but I'm also delighted to mention that as of this summer, we have added quite a number of new members. We found that in the course of particularly the spring, we had a large number of applications coming in, which means that people are at least knowing more and more all the time that we exist and that people want to join. We have both full new members, which you have appointed, which we appreciate, and we also have a number of new associate members, which the commission has the authority to invite to serve as associate members as well. I would like to add and put a plug in that we still are actually holding a few slots of full commissioners, which we hope you might be able to appoint in the coming months, for women from District 1. We have some slots that we think the southern part of the county is not as represented as the middle and northern. So we do and are seeking applications for that. We have a number of priorities and goals that are set forth by first the 1976 and then the revised 1992 resolution on the Commission for Women. And these in general stating, without reading the resolution, are to promote education and employment for women, to be a voice for overcoming discrimination of women and girls in whatever form that might take, and identifying and studying issues, obviously local, but also ones that might be affecting women and girls countywide, nationwide, and around the world. I would add, Jennifer mentioning myself having worked on women's issues internationally, the issues are the same. It's why I enjoy serving on the Commission for Women, because in retirement, I find that I still am dealing with the same kinds of things that I have been committed to at all different levels on behalf of women and girls. We are also to serve as a clearinghouse on issues and to provide resources and to recognize the outstanding achievement of women and girls in the county. This report will elaborate on how we have pursued, obviously, these priorities in the last couple years. Across everything we do, we have some cross-cutting themes, and we do think about those. And that is, how do we increase the involvement of women and girls, but also support for and concern about the status of women and girls in the county? So we want to raise the visibility, and we also want to raise the awareness that the commission exists, that the county commissioners years ago found it important enough to create a commission for women, and that we are still alive and well and trying to do what we can. Our key approach, and I might mention, we have a small budget, less than $5,000 a year, to do what we try to do. And thus, we try to leverage that by working with community organizations throughout, and we partner with other institutions that do exist in the county. And I cannot tell you the support that we get from any of them, from Parks and Rec, from the library, from the hospital and the health department, the state's attorney's office, the sheriff's department, and various community organizations like the NAACP or the Mediation Center, the Historical Society. I'm not going to read through the whole list, but these are some just within the last year or so that we have partnered on our programs. We try to categorize our topics in different ways, but in the last year or so, our forum topics that we have had, and again, we have had those. We use the library, we use the Harriet Elizabeth Brown Center, we do some of our programming outside because of COVID. And so we've done a variety of different things, and these are some that we have, programs that we have had in one way or another over this last period of time. One is financial literacy, and that has been forums where we utilize the experience of even our members on the commission, lawyers who deal with estates, for instance. We talked and have a forum on Social Security and Medicare. We've talked about ones with wills and probates. And these kinds of forums do not just get women. I can remember going to one of our wills and probates ones at the library on a Saturday morning. We had about 50 people there, men and women of all ages. Margaret Phipps came and talked about the office here of wills. And so we are reaching different people at different levels on these. We are talking about the need to reach young people about financial literacy, and how do we do that? There's nothing like this past week or two for college students going off and being bombarded with all the credit cards they can get and everything else on a college campus, and how they can spend that money. So we are trying to think of how do we reach people at different ages. Sextortion, sexual harassment, and human trafficking has been one focus that we have added more recently. Particularly, I might mention the human trafficking. We build on the focus of awareness nationally, and January is the month of focus of human awareness. We appreciate the different times over the course of the year that the commission, the county commissioners, have supported these efforts by issuing proclamations recognizing these national awareness months, and then how we are trying to work with this locally. The last 2 years especially, we've focused on trafficking, and this is if you will, a bit of a sexy topic for some people to think about, and yet it is a critical topic for us to think about even locally. People don't realize that there are situations even among our local people, and it particularly affects women and girls, especially girls from the age of about 11 to 14. And we have had cases in the county. The county district attorney has dealt with some of these. We have on our commission former Deputy State's Attorney Catherine Marsh, who has worked on these topics in different counties, here, Prince George's, Charles, and we know these things exist. And so we think it's important to raise awareness, and we've had high school sports teams even support these and come out. So we try again to raise the awareness on these. Another series that was popular that got a little bit in limbo because of COVID was our I Can series, which was targeting mostly middle school girls and high school girls to think about that they might be encouraged to study and dream that they might hold jobs in different fields that are predominantly still occupied by men. With that, I would say I want to remind you and us as a county that within the county, we have amazing expertise. And for all of our forums, for our programs, again, small budget, we don't pay people to come talk. We draw on people in the community and other groups that are working on these to share their expertise in different ways. And this is a prime example of that because we had forums over the course of a year, for instance, and we have begun to do those a little hybrid. We want to do, or Zoom, do that more, where we drew on a detective from the state police to talk about military and law enforcement. We had a young woman on the commission at the time who was in the Air Force, a communications officer on Air Force Two. She flew around with the vice president. She lives in the county. You know, we had one of the, a test pilot from PAX. For STEM, we have a nuclear engineer from the power plant. You know, and I will say that former Commissioner Pat Nutter encouraged us, don't forget the trades. And we had young women who graduated from the tech program here who were the only woman at Bayside Auto Mechanics who is an auto mechanic. And she could talk about what that was like, both studying and being the only woman as an auto mechanic there. And a young woman who was studying carpentry. So again, all of these things we are drawing on the skills and yet acknowledging the expertise that exists, but trying to share that and encourage younger women to think about and broaden their own horizons about what might be possible for them. Coming up is October, and the commissioners, you have been very supportive of the Domestic Violence Awareness Month, which is October, as well as Sexual Assault Awareness Month, which is April. We, again, appreciate the proclamations, and this allows us to get visibility as well as your support. And I will say that we already have on the schedule, and I thank you for that, on October 4th, the beginning of October, to share in that proclamation. Recently, our candlelight vigils and forums have been held outside at the courthouse. And again, we've had courthouse support, you know, sheriff, state's attorney, commissioners, other public officials, and public art demonstrations to, again, raise that awareness. That event this year, I will just put a plug in, is towards the end of the month, at least I understand right now, it's October 24th. So the support that you do give is particularly important, but these awareness months are, again, these things, these two issues exist no matter what. We just held a book discussion at the library, which was in person and on the screen, thanks to the new technology the library has to have one of these wonderful, they call it an owl, in the middle of the table. And whenever anybody speaks, the camera goes there, and then it goes there, and then it goes to the screen, so that we could do that. And that discussion was on a book that made national awareness called Know My Name, which was about a young woman who was sexually assaulted on a college campus at Stanford by a swimmer, and it got a lot of attention because of a very lenient reaction and response even from the courts. But the discussion and the book was about not just a victim's experience, but throughout the whole justice system, the legal system, and family, and how that is effective. Nowadays, there is a new emergency number, 411, for sexual assault, and we have already scheduled next 411, April 11th, as the day when there will be an event in the county to focus on that. Among our probably best known and longest serving event is the recognition event called Women of the World. which in the past has been primarily a luncheon and acknowledgement of where we recognize the achievements of some of the women and girls in the county. The commission itself issues a call community-wide for nominations for women in 3 categories: business, advocacy, and service, and then a woman of tomorrow for a younger woman under the age of 21, to acknowledge their achievements and to recognize them. We also work on this program with now 6 community partners who themselves then also recognize a woman who has particularly contributed, whether staff or volunteer, to their activities, again, in the county. And in the past 2 years, we've had total of 21 honorees by 8 community partners. Those partners, again, are some I mentioned at the very beginning: Concerned Black Women, Minority Business Alliance, the League of Women Voters, the Historical Society, NAACP, the Mediation Society. And I want to just put a plug in and thank very much the quality of service that we have at the Calvert Library. Because we could not hold our event in March. We postponed it till September. We then postponed it to March. And we did our first effort at that, doing it as a Zoom. This put a lot of demand on the library to use their technology. We had people in different locations. It worked so well. We had almost 200 people attending on a Saturday morning, sticking with the program the whole time. And honorees actually liked it because it also allowed their friends and relatives from Oklahoma or Oregon or someplace to sit in and observe too. So in evaluating that, we did that again in 2022. And we couldn't have done it without the collaboration with the library. They have been very happy with it, to the point that they are joining us not just as a tech partner, but as a partner in the program. So I will say that this is a program where not only are we recognizing the achievements of women, but it also gets the county recognized in that way too. This year we received video messages from Senator Chris Van Hollen, from Congressman Steny Hoyer, who took the time to congratulate our honorees and to recognize Calvert Commission for Women for what they were doing in this, as well as your proclamations and those from the Maryland delegation and otherwise. So I do want to thank everybody who is involved in that. We have other ways of, again, recognizing the achievements, and one is that we do and did name our History Fair Award, when we partner with the public schools, after our former chair and longtime member of the commission, Annette Funn, and we have named that in her honor. That is a partnership with the Calvert schools. Our one and only direct service that we provide at all is our clothes closet that is based at St. Paul's Episcopal Church here in Prince Frederick. It is free clothing for women and girls. It is primarily clothing that is for women at different levels, but who may be going for an interview for work. They need clothing for work. They need it for life in general, but it is not, we don't accept jeans or prom dresses, that kind of thing. It is, again, a professional approach, but it is volunteer, and it is primarily volunteer by the members of the commission who do this by appointment. We then have open houses spring and fall, and we established a first Friday open, but that got limited because, of course, St. Paul's was closed and we could not use the facility for quite a while during COVID as well. But it is, I think, an important service and something that we do want to let people know. We, in fact, have had to stop at points in time because we have a Sunday school room and we have clothing racks of clothes. And we have to say, no, we don't have any more room. We would love to be able to give away, that all the clothing is free and people can come and take whatever they need. So there's no limit on that as well. We also, if we feel like things have been around too long, we pass it on to another place that provides that same kind of service in a different way and may reach different people. And then we have a little bit more room for some new ones. Another area, and a big one this year, in our women's health area, where we have partnered with the health department and the library and the hospital. We had an extremely successful Women's Health Expo held outside at the hospital for the first time this year. Decided to do it not on a weekend, but on a Saturday in collaboration with the farmers market there on a Tuesday afternoon. The hospital counted, they think it was more, but anyway, they gave us a number of at least 370 people who were there at one point in time or another, including doctors who stayed, who gave skin care exams. We had the Lions Club with the hearing and eye free, everything free, again, an immunization clinic, and we already have set a similar date of May 9th for next year with the hospital and health department. They were extremely pleased with the way it worked, to the point that a few weeks later, they did have a men's health expo, modeling after what we had done in May. The commission does hold memberships in both the National U.S. Commission for Women and the Maryland Commission for Women, as well as an organization called the Maryland Legislative Action for Women. We received notices from them. We are invited to statewide meetings. We have contact with other commissions for women this year, for instance, in August via Zoom, with the Maryland Commission for Women sponsoring, I believe there are now 14 commissions for women. Not every county has a commission for women, but they're getting there. So we also look at and can have input on priorities that for new legislation that is coming up in January. In November, there are meetings to identify specific pieces of legislation that might be coming up and will be introduced with already sponsorship from a delegate or a senator at the state level, and to see if there are ones that we would like to help support, endorse, or pursue to understand better ourselves. We do participate in the League of Women Voters annual legislative meeting with the Annapolis delegation to, again, let them know if either we have concerns, or one of the things in the past was the Commission for Women was the instrumental entity that started the Harriet Elizabeth Brown, led to the task force, led to the center, and the continuing support for that. This year, we did, via Zoom, hold some what we would call strategic consultations. Title IX, its 50th anniversary is 2022. There's been a lot of attention on that. And Title IX is important to particularly women and girls, and it was particularly in educational institutions. So we did ask and invite the Director of Student Services, who is the Title IX coordinator for students and families with the Board of Education, to attend one of our meetings and to talk with us and explain from his, what he saw as what was going on in the schools now, where there were concerns, and to allow us to ask questions about Title IX in the schools. We also had consultations over the course of the past year with Dr. Polsky and members of the health department, as well as others, including some others in different places in the state, with the support of Jennifer, as we were thinking about, years ago, it was the Commission for Women that identified the issue and the need for a domestic violence shelter to begin with. And when Safe Harbor was established a few years later, it was the commission again that identified the need for a rape crisis center. Again, we don't do those things. We just are trying to identify where there are services that might be needed. And we have kept in touch. And so we have kept in touch particularly with trying to see are there issues and concerns with the domestic violence shelter? Are there places where we could provide some help at this point in time? One, in the midst of COVID, when I called, I said, are there any needs? One was they needed supplies, cleaning supplies. And so, you know, within a month, we had a Saturday morning drive up, drop it off cleaning thing that we had, I can't tell you how many CRVs, some minivans, loaded with stuff, with boxes from diapers to cleaning supplies that people just dropped off. They didn't have to get out of their car. And we had members of the commission just loading them up. So there are different ways that we can provide and respond to those kinds of things. And those are areas that are still, we monitor and concern. We have had in the past, and we would invite you, hopefully, any of you who are interested in the future, some very informal networking situations where we have said from 12 to 2 this day at Dreamweavers in the back room. The commission will be there, you buy your own lunch, you come, we talk about whatever is of interest. It's a way we found that we can help identify some issues or concerns, or maybe we can let, again, people know that the commission exists. Maybe they would like to serve on it, or maybe they would like to bring some issues to us, and we might find those out. One key area where we both need help and are continually trying to see how do we get that word out that we are doing these things, how do we share that with others, and how do we identify areas that we could work better, is in the area of communications. And we have been working on communications concerns, issues. Times have changed, pre-COVID and post-COVID, or whatever we are in now. Things have changed. And what we do by Zoom, what we do in the newspapers when the numbers of print availability is less and less, the county's doing more with Facebook, with social media. We're trying to figure out and understand where we as a commission fit into those, into guidelines, and what we can do and what's the process we use to do that. The list there are tools that are available, but they're changing. And so that's one of the things that we feel we need to change too, and we need to understand how we move ahead in some of those areas. I will say that we are pleased, Jennifer and I worked together by being able to establish, with your support, the Calvert Commission for Women Fund, since we do not raise money ourselves. But how do we deal with monies that we might have, particularly, for instance, from the Women of the World event? So we set up a fund through Chesapeake Charities to facilitate donations for people, where Chesapeake Charities is handling that, will report on it, serves as the 501c3 entity.
And Sharon Strand and I both have oversight over that fund.
Yes.
So we're given the reports for that fund.
Right. So, planning for the future, we just, as I said, held a retreat. And one of the things that we will be doing is trying to use some of the media that we have to do some polling throughout the county of women and men, just to try to identify, are there areas of concern that we should be addressing? Are there programs that we could be doing? Are there things that we're doing that they don't need anymore? Just to see how do we identify the issues and move forward with that. And we're going to work with Jennifer and the
CMR.
Right.
For sure. We were very successful this past year with the Veterans Affairs Commission, as you saw last week. So we really want to take that same approach with Commission for Women. Still an important group that we need to hear from. And the times are changing, and getting that input on how we can serve them better, I think, is critical.
So we seek your ideas as well, comments. we appreciate all your support. I do want to put in a huge thank you to the staff of the county government, particularly the Office of Community Resources, but others in your office as well who support us in different ways and respond to concerns or needs or lists that we need. Our many community partners and citizens in general who have been supporting us, who are obviously have appreciated the work that we have done. With that, I turn to you and say, do you have any comments, questions, or ideas? And we truly are open to those now and at any point in time.
So what are some of the biggest challenges you see today for women in Calvert County?
We just talked about, so at the retreat, at their annual retreat, that was one of Joan's questions actually to our office, because we deal with these issues, and of course the issue of childcare came up, which is pervasive, because families rely on it. Women rely on it to get employed, to go back to employment after they've had a child. You have to wait a year, or you're on a waiting list for a year to get your child in daycare. That creates a lot of uncertainty, and some women are making choices to stay at home. So rather than pursue employment, and those choices have consequences. They affect our revenue as a county too, our tax revenue. So, certainly we want women to have opportunities, and I think the childcare issue is going to be a big one.
We were talking that this morning.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a real issue, and there's so many single parents, and it's a dual income anyway out here, but especially single parents, you don't have the other partner
Right.
to, if there's, and things come up.
And things that exist all over the place. The violence issue is still an issue, and it is still a concern,
Which is still mind-blowing to me.
It
I don't
is when,
understand in today's
when the
world.
state's attorney or the sheriff can talk about how many calls they get, and, that violence is there every day at all ages,
that's a
all
fact. That's a
income,
fact.
et cetera. So that's an ongoing. I think we see that, the concerns, many of the concerns fit into the others, and that's why I think it's important that we work with whatever entity exists. For instance, women make up the bulk of the aging population. That's a
'Cause we die
demographic
young.
fact.
We die first.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. But there are issues, in terms of transportation or health issues. There is issues, a growing area of concern is elder abuse. And that may be physical, it may be taking advantage of in terms of financial and other things. There's a whole area there. And again, it is an area where there are other entities that we could work with, but gender is a big part of some of these areas of concern.
She brought up the financial planning piece. When women were, raising the children and not employed, and maybe they had a spouse that was in charge of taking care of the finances, and they did not have that expertise. I think these financial planning workshops are really enabling more equity, for women, so that when they reach that stage in their life where their spouse has passed, that they have, they know what the resources are, they know what they need to do next. We see these situations happen all the time with Office on Aging, and you don't want them to reach crisis level, but they can.
Look how fast things have changed because of technology. My mother wrote checks at the grocery store. Could you imagine? Have you ever seen the face of the 12 people standing in line when the one person writes a check?
And they're shaking their heads.
Oh, they're like ready to go on a rampage, and I'm thinking, but you know what that one person that's writing the check's doing? And you're watching them take it out of their book and all. They don't have debt.
Right.
They're not flashing the card with no clue what's on it, and that lost art of actually knowing what you spend for your purchases. But that's so gone now that, and it's just the little things, and you're right. You had one say, spouse that always did the bills, and now all of a sudden, you know, they're gone, or unable to do it anymore. You know, it's an issue.
I mean, another concern is, again, I think of it at different ages as our work in terms of whether it's STEM, the schools are working, and now it's STEAM, adding the arts to STEM. But, you know, how do we encourage young girls? We do encourage, you see more girls in the sports. You know, when the football soccer team in Europe had more fans at a championship game a couple of weeks ago than has ever been at a soccer game, and it was women's, you know, what we call soccer. But you think about all the different achievements that are coming, but it's always still put in the term of the first woman doing this, the first woman coach or ref or CEO or whatever, and so there's still a long ways to go
To where
in
you're just
terms of
saying the
getting
person
that.
just did this, absolutely, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And the
Right.
wage gap is still an issue too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, some of these situations take, you know, they're issues that we work towards slowly, but then others escalate and they're something we need to address right away, like the childcare situation. So I think the survey is gonna go a long way to kind of pulling out those barriers for women and families, so that we know, or the commission knows how to respond. We're here to support them.
And this is nothing about the current situation, but it is a fact that we do hear when people, if they might look at this meeting today, women are concerned that there are no women sitting up there. You know, that there are 5 males. And so, you know, it is a fact, and it's a very visible fact, you know. So it's just, I don't know that that's going to, you know, change or not, but that is an issue in terms of what people see also as role models and who's being represented. That's why, again, I think it's extremely important that the Board of County Commissioners, that you have showed your support for the Commission for Women in different ways at different times throughout the year. I think that's really important.
No, that's true. I had that. I've had that said to me, and back to your point, I'm like, can you not see me as a man? And it's impossible. You can't. You know, but it goes back to that point when I'm like, you know, when we get to a time of, just look at me, am I doing the job properly? Am I qualified? And that's the respect level that we need back and forth, and that's where these things are essential, because, you know, to talk about it, you get afraid to talk because you start thinking, you know, certain roles or what have you, and I had that, and I was on the parking lot, and I said, you know, can you ask me, am I not qualified? Am I not doing the job? And she said, you know, Mike, you're absolutely right. She says, because I wasn't going to vote for you because you're a man. But to have the freedom to talk that back and forth, because, you know, it's like, and you're right, you know, it gets, like you said, visibly, you know, and that's where it has to get to, where you don't see that anymore. Just see, do they understand my concerns?
Right.
Are they addressing those concerns? Are they doing the job properly? So you're absolutely right.
So we've seen in upper management in the county that we've had, you know, growing number of women. Thank you, boss. So,
What?
you know.
So that's why the work that you do is so important for us, because there are 5 males sitting up here in these seats. In the world that I live in, I work with amazing women. You know, throughout my career off the farm, I have surrounded myself with very strong, intelligent women. And so it's hard for me to see some of the issues that you see, and it's important that you bring those to our attention. So, you know, if you look around our room, you know, if you look at our staff meeting, I say, why women think they can't? Because we got a room full of them, you know. But I do understand that there are women out there that face challenges that I can't understand as a male. And so what you do in your group is so important for us, so that we, you know, you get those issues to our attention. And it's not that we won't support you, but it's just figuring out where the needs are and how we can address those needs.
Right.
So,
think once we have those survey results, bringing those back to you to have further conversation would be really helpful.
Because I know what to do with somebody that sex traffics an 11 to 14-year-old girl. I know what to do with them. Some other situations, maybe I don't know, but I definitely know what to do with them.
So, the other thing I will say is that you can see how active a group this is, and we couldn't do that without the support of the Board of County Commissioners. They're one of the only boards and commissions that get funding, so that they can be active and do things. So thank you. We really, on behalf of them and on behalf of our department, we really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What you do.
Thank you.
Thank you. And again, we seek ideas anytime. Thank you.
Thank
We
you.
do too. Last item under presentations is we have Ms. Gail Hatfield with us today to talk about the previous election. The good, the bad, and the ugly. There was no ugly, right? Just
It
checking.
ran swimmingly. It was smooth.
That's right.
Yeah.
Good
afternoon.
Gail Hatfield, Elections Administrator. Yes, I'm just here to basically give you a little bit of an update of how the primary went and sounded like I could hear myself already through it, so.
We just want to make sure all the citizens out there can
Okay.
hear you.
Okay, so, is this the big button?
Good luck.
Technology.
Whatever you do, don't touch the button at the very bottom to the left.
It's a ejection
Yeah.
seat.
Yeah.
So we can eject, no, is that for beside me? So as you all are aware, we had 3 early vote sites, so this was our very first election having 3 early vote sites. We had the mail-in ballot and drop boxes, and we had 20 polling places for the 22 primary election. So with the early vote sites, I wanted to give you some of the statistics as to how they worked out, you know. We had a total of 4,148 voters that showed up for early voting. At the Southern Community Center, which we know that was a brand-new early vote site, we had 790 total voters that showed up. Yes, it's a little low, but it's a primary. It's in a very populated area, so I anticipate that as it gets a little more well-known, there are going to be more people coming out. The Community Resources Building, which is where we're located, of course, had the highest number of 2,018. That's, people already know where we are. The Fairview Vote Center, which was a brand-new place, came in second with 1,340 total voters that showed up there. For a little teeny trailer, it was packed. They had people coming and going in there. So we also had 4 drop boxes that were located throughout the county this time. At the Community Resources, as you can see, we had 46% of them returned their mail-in ballots in a drop box instead of by putting them in the mail. The Community Resources, we had 1,143 ballots returned at our box, 599 at the box at Fairview. The Northeast Community Center, we had 320, and down south, we had 369 ballots. And we actually had the little mailbox out in the front of our office. We had 264 people drop their ballots out in that one because I guess it was on the street, easy to get to it. So on Election Day, of course, you're aware, we had 20 polling places instead of 23 due to the school constructions and other considerations because we had to combine them. Like we talked about, Huntingtown High School was one of the combined ones because we couldn't use Northern High, and there was, Dunkirk Fire Department has become where it's hard for voters to get in, there's no parking, so kind of Dunkirk was moved down to Northern. There was a little bit of shifting. Beach Elementary, that's under construction, so they were all shifted to Sunderland. So we're going to keep all the precincts the same for the November election. I don't want to throw any more changes out there. For right now, they've had enough changes, I think, this year between the redistricting and the polling place changes. I want to leave it all the same for November. The comparison between the 2018, which was our last normal primary, and the 2022 primary this time shows you the difference. We have significantly increased, as you see, in mail-in ballots. People are picking up on mail-in ballots left and right. From 482, which used to be our normal of receiving ballots, it went to 5,861, and that was for a primary. So that is.
I was shocked.
Yeah,
I
and that's
ne-
low for a primary now.
But I never saw that coming.
You didn't see it coming?
No, not that many
We
mail-ins.
did.
I thought people would still show up at the end of the day, but
No, we knew it was coming. In fact, I actually had anticipated it to be more because in 2020, we were well over 20,000 mail-in ballots for the two elections, so. The provisional, which is the one that they get at the precinct if there's something wrong with their voter record, of course, we had, from 153, we went to 424. Early voting, we had 2,916 show up, and this time, of course, you see that's, 4,164. On election day was lower, as you can see. From 2018, we had 12,079 show up at the polls, and this year, we only had 9,959. But you see the difference between early voting and mail-in ballots. So that is where the difference is, because we had 20,408 voters turn out versus 15,630. But we also have a higher number of registered voters. Look at 2018, we only had, 50,000 versus now we're at 67,000. So we have a lot more registered voters.
Can you go back to that previous screen?
Is that bottom left button? Oh, you went back. Oh, you got a button too?
Daryl's got a button.
Oh, okay.
The population of the county, thank you, Daryl. The population of the county did not increase by 30%, 34% in 4 years.
No.
But the registered
But the
voters
registration did.
increased by
Well-
34%.
No, the 2018, it's kind of hard to compare 2018 to 22, because in 2018, we did not have I'm sorry.
We didn't have the
And
school board.
we did not have the school board, so the number of eligible voters was less, as opposed to 22, where we included the unaffiliated voters.
Yes, because see, unaffiliated voters can now vote for a school board, but in 2018, you could only have Democrats and Republicans vote.
Okay, so I misread that.
Okay, yes,
the
so
way I
it's
was looking at that
50,000
is there was only
eligible
50
voters that showed up, that could
There
show
was a-
up. That could possibly show up, yes.
But there was more than that in the county.
Yeah.
Okay, the way I read that, it looked like in 4 years, 17,000 new people came out to register. I'm sorry, I
No,
misread that.
no, not that many.
Okay.
Not that many, no. We pretty much have stayed close to, I think we might have been in 2018, maybe 62,000,
I think it was
maybe
60.
62,000. We really don't have room, I don't think, to put more people. I think they're just moving out and moving in, moving out and moving in. I think they're just changing houses. But it does seem like, our registered vote, what did you say?
I said we should put you on the planning commission.
Well, that's just the way it seems, for registered voters. It does seem that way, that we kind of stay the same. Okay, so then we were going to give you what the voting method by party was for this one. It was basically a 39.15% turnout for our Republican voters out of what we have registered to vote. 10,816 voters showed up. And as you can see, the breakdown there, the election day, of course, was highest for in-person for Republican voters. The early voting was 2478, which was pretty high for early voting. Their mail-in was 1,852, and then provisional, of course, was the one's election day. Your Democrat, as you can see, there is a difference because you can see it's a 33.9% turnout, but your mail-in was much higher. So you have a higher percentage for mail-in ballots in your Democrats and a lower percentage, as you can see, on in-person election day. So these were kind of your figures to show you that. And we did throw the nonpartisan in there, even though, as you can see, it was only 1,500 that even showed up just to vote for the school board. So it wasn't a very much, a lot there. Now, the important dates, just as reminders to you for the November election that's coming up, there is a deadline to register to vote. That is October 18th. So they must register to vote if they're not by that date. Early voting will be held this time between October 27th and November 3rd. So it will still be the same hours, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m., and it will be at the 3 early vote sites that we mentioned earlier. So if you want to request a mail-in ballot, let's say you're not on a permanent list, because a lot of people signed up for permanent. If you're not, you have until November 1st to have a ballot mailed to you. Other than that, Election Day will be November 8th this time.
So, Gail, when will you start mailing out ballots?
The ballots are usually mailed out approximately 30 days before the election. So
October 8th.
if it's November, we're already in the process of starting our proofing. We haven't even finished the primary, and we're already rolling over to begin the prep work for the general election now.
So, based on the trends for mail-in, do you think there's a need to go back to more polling places?
No. No, in fact, I think it was kind of a trial to cut back to the 20 and kind of what I would call make it a super precinct, where you could take 2 precincts and combine them into one. And it was sort of a trial to save money and basically because of the mail-in ballot going up. Now, you saw the mail-in ballots for the primary. They're going to be doubled at least for the general. You know, you're going to have at least double. So I would like to eventually start kind of consolidating a couple
I
more
was gonna
as
say,
we go.
There's an opportunity where you've got
Yes.
clusters of polling places.
Exactly,
Just
especially
trying to-
down south.
And the beaches.
Yes, the beach area would be a good cluster, and the
Must be.
Ranch Club would be a really good
Yeah.
cluster. I have like 4 precincts down there. So
Well-
if I could take at least 2 or 3 together.
And to that point, though, aren't people still being directed to go to their polling place?
Yes, but if I take their polling places and make it one big one like I did Huntingtown,
Well, and I was wondering how fluid could that be? I mean, you know, where if you're a District 1 person, do you have to go to the firehouse? Do you have to go?
if that's where you're registered, yes.
Is that a state thing?
Oh, that's just a law. You have to vote, because we do not have vote centers. We have polling places. Now, as the election boards, and I'm one of them, our big fight is to go to vote centers. If I can go to vote centers and we have more, maybe 10, 12 vote centers in our county versus 20 polling places, and there you could vote anywhere you want.
Well, Election Day, because you had a change in locations and a reduction, several people went to the wrong place.
Yes.
And they weren't allowed to use provisional. They were told they had to go to their polling place.
That would be a judge issue.
I heard that a
Because
few
we
times.
train our election judges that
And I
if a
told-
person doesn't want to go, like, for example, everybody saw Fairview first. They're like, oh, there's Fairview. Let's pull in there, and we're not gonna go to Northern Middle. It's what, half mile down the road. So they were our largest provisional precinct because everyone voted provisional in
But
there.
at Fairview, the one person told me they wouldn't let him. They told him he had to go to Northern. He said, what difference is it? And
I heard
told
that
him,
down
I
But
thought
that
in
would
high
be a
school.
judge
that was
issue.
the reason for a provisional, is that if there's an issue, you can vote.
Yep.
And you clarify later the validity of the vote.
Exactly,
It
and,
seemed
and
like
we
that
don't
day-
turn down those provisional voters because we know they're registered to vote. They just voted in the wrong place and they have the same ballot
A lot
style.
of that was
So
going
that's
on.
why I would love to push towards vote centers,
Yeah. I
because
think
then you
so.
don't have that issue.
So this coming election, somebody walks into not their polling place, are they gonna be allowed to vote?
Yeah, they can vote.
Okay,
They can vote in
'cause,
a place that's
I
not
mean,
their
I had
voting place,
people
but they
walk-
have to fill out a form and they have to go through a lot more paperwork because they have to vote a provisional ballot. They cannot vote on a scanner if you're not in your polling place that you belong in.
Right.
So, and then that could be that they were explaining to him, they could be, they were saying, hey, you gotta fill this paperwork out, you gotta do this, you gotta do that, or you could go to your precinct, which is just down the street, and vote on the machine. And, and a lot of times people might take it as, oh, they're telling me I can't do it that way. But the one change is that we were not allowed also to count ballots early this past primary. The, legislation said no, the governor vetoed it, the bill was thrown out, so that was why it took us longer to get the, results after the election. But we have been pushing the state board, and the state board has filed an emergency petition in a circuit court. So they're seeking approval now to allow us to do it at least 8 days prior to the November election, the early voting starting. And we're really behind that, because if I can get some of those ballots out of the way, because
So it
it's
takes
going to be
pressure off.
twice as many, yeah.
Mhm.
It will help
In
us get our
2018
results faster.
In 2018, you did that, right?
No, 2020.
2020, I'm sorry.
In 2020, we were allowed. So, that's all I got is, oh, well, there is a couple constitutional amendments that will be coming up on the ballot, so you will have a couple of those this time that people will be voting on in November, like legalizing cannabis, different. Those are like main questions or whatever, so there will be that, oops, hold on.
You must have hit
Daryl
that
cut you
button.
off.
Hit the button.
I hit that button.
Timeout.
Somebody hit that button. But that's what I have for now. We are in the process, like I said, we're already geared up and starting. And I guess we'll have a better report for you after the November, and we'll see how the early vote sites come to pass after the November. And I know it's going to be total confusion because look at the low percentage and look at the confusion. So we're going to have double confusion in November. People going to the wrong precincts.
Well, the precincts aren't going to change, so if they figure it out in the primary, you think they're not
For
going to
those that
remember?
figured out in the primary, but what did we have, a 30% turnout?
So what do you think
in the
you're gonna
general,
have?
we're going to have over a 60% turnout.
That's what I was
It'll
saying.
double.
And I guess I understand the reason for the form is just to make sure that there's not double voting and triple
Yep.
voting.
Yes.
So I get that. I mean, maybe that form can be as streamlined as possible.
Remember, we don't run elections, we just follow the guidelines.
Yeah,
We don't get to choose the laws that come down on us.
yeah.
But that's where we stand for right now. So I just thought we'd give you an update.
Thank you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
You good?
Appreciate it. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So that brings us to public comment.
The board adopted a resolution in 1989 intending to maintain the order and decorum of the governmental process. A copy is found here to my right. The Ethics Commission has asked that we remind speakers at public comment that lobbyists include those who seek to influence public policy, and lobbyists must register in advance. The floor has been open for comment from persons in the meeting room who may begin making their way to the microphones, then those joining virtually. All speakers must identify themselves and whether speaking as an individual, where you will be allocated 2 minutes, or as the designated representative of a group, where you will be allocated 5 minutes. For those attending virtually, if you wish to speak, please press *9 or use the raise your hand function. Virtual speakers will be identified by the last 4 digits of their phone number or screen name and unmuted, one at a time. If necessary, you may unmute yourself by pressing *6. Thank you. I don't see any speakers virtually.
Caller 2803.
Good morning, Commissioners, or good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Joseph Cormier, and I'm in Owings, Maryland. I want to take a second to celebrate the good things we talked about today. We got some new deputy sheriffs. We talked about the suicide and the substance abuse. We talked about the Women's Commission. All great things, and I very much appreciate it. I was a little disheartened when you were discussing the Board of Education MOU. You know, I don't have the transcripts in front of me, but I know in the past you've asked for every single cent to be accounted for, and now it's, well, why can't we just have a wink and a nudge to get stuff done? Is the juice worth the squeeze? And I feel like that's, you know, asking for the candle at both ends, and if you know, calling them petty is a little, you know, off-putting when we have new leadership in charge now. Let's try and use sugar instead of vinegar and create a partnership instead of keep running the same burned bridges we already have. You know, as far as turf fields go, let's feed the kids first. You know, we're chasing kids down for $1.25 and sending letters home. Is that worth the squeeze to get that juice for $1.25 when we could just give all kids access to breakfast and lunch programs? Because a hungry kid is not a child who's ready to learn or be functional. Thank you so much and have a great day.
Nobody else?
I don't
Thank
see
you.
anyone else.
Next item on the agenda is Commissioner reports. Commissioner Hart.
So just want to remind everybody, back to school. Remember, school buses are out there, and so that's a little change in traffic pattern. And then I want to thank the folks at Calvert Hospital. I always keep wanting to say Calvert Memorial. It's so just from a kid, but just had a scare with Zach yesterday. You know, football season. And the folks there were fantastic. Thought he had a broken arm. Thank God, no broken arm, and just a kid thing. So a lot of times, things in your own neighborhood you kind of take for granted. They were phenomenal. They were busy. I mean, they were slammed, and but they were great from in the door and out the door, and so that's all I have, Mr. President.
Thank you. Commissioner McConkey.
Nothing to report, sir.
Mr. Gadway.
Totally off topic of being commissioner, but I really wanted to say how enjoyable it was to go out with a friend snakehead hunting the other night. It was a lot of fun. My second time going out for people that haven't been out. To go out fishing like that, we've got a lot of places around here to go and enjoy it.
Where'd you go do that at?
I can't tell you.
It's a secret spot.
There's
Secret
super
spot.
secret spots all around the county. I asked
They
him
won't
if
let
it
him
was
go
okay
anymore.
to talk about it, and he said, yeah, but just don't tell him where.
It was somewhere south, right?
Yeah.
South.
South.
So you don't know where you were?
No,
I know where I was, but I could tell you,
Blindfolded.
but, you know.
We
this-
have them.
Do you have
Yeah,
any
we-
pictures of snakeheads that you caught?
There's
you know,
no proof.
I think I did. It was this big.
Right.
He was fishing right off from Dominion.
So if we don't have
Right.
anything to report, we now make up stories.
We make up stuff just to hear ourselves talk. Is that complete your report, Commissioner Gadway? I don't want to cut you off.
No, you're good.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Weems.
I have an old friend that asked me to make the citizens of Calvert County aware they're going to have, and it's also segues into today's topic of suicide and mental health awareness. But they're having the Become One Project presents Suicide and Mental Health Awareness Walk. It's titled One More Night. It's September 10th, 2022, 6:30 at Jefferson Patterson Park. That's all I have to report.
Thank you very much. So last week I attended the 100th birthday party for Miss Evelyn Young. I think it was my first 100th birthday party I've ever attended. She was a wonderful woman, a delight. She walked into that room better than I did. Her mind sharp as a tack. We had a wonderful conversation. I want to wish her all the best. It was, and she had a room full of people there celebrating with her. So it was a great day. I also, I believe on Friday, attended the ribbon cutting for Tilo's, which is the new operators of what used to be JT's Cafe, or there on Route 2 in Sunderland. Wonderful couple has taken that over. Food was excellent that day, so they remodeled the place. So I would encourage any of you, if you're hungry, stop in to Tilo's. Also, on tomorrow night at 7:30 in North Beach at the Pavilion on the Boardwalk, there's going to be a service to remember those who died from drug overdoses in the past year. So if you want to come out and support those families, that's tomorrow night at North Beach at 7:30 on the Boardwalk. And on last Saturday, I attended the Dragon Boat races in North Beach. I think the crowd was a little lighter than normal, but there still was a good crowd of people there. And I don't know who eventually won the race. I had to leave early, but I know the barn at Pleasant Acres did very well, although they were a little skeptical if they were going to be able to win the whole thing, but they did very well. So I want to congratulate those individuals. And thank all of you that support the Dragon Boat races. The money goes for a good cause to end hunger. So, and once again, I want to extend condolences out to the Hammett family for the passing of my cousin Jack. Very fine man, and did a lot of great work in the community. So I want to make sure his family, keep them in our prayers. With that, Commissioner Weems, you have a motion for me?
Yes, sir, Mr. President. I make a motion to recess to executive session pursuant to number 1, 3-305B3 to discuss acquisition of property for a public purpose and directly related matters. 2, 3-305B4 to consider a matter that concerns the proposal for a business or industrial organization to locate, expand, or remain in the state. 3-305B7 to obtain legal advice, and 3-305B10 to discuss public security because that public discussion would constitute a risk to the public or to public security.
Second.
I have a motion and a second that we go into executive session. Any discussion on that motion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. You all have a great day.